What happens when one of Hollywood's most legendary icons steps into a lion's den disguised as a daytime talk show? You're about to witness one of the most uncomfortable, jaw-dropping moments ever broadcast live. Harrison Ford Han Solo, Indiana Jones, the face of American cinema for over 4 decades, walked onto The View expecting a standard promotional chat. A few laughs, some softball questions, a quick plug for his latest film. Instead, what he got was a powder-keg Joy Behar was holding the match. Before we dive into this unforgettable showdown, make sure to hit subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments because you're going to want to weigh in. The studio? Lights were blisteringly bright that morning as Ford took his seat opposite the panel. He'd done this hundreds of times. Promote the film, smile, move on. But from the moment Joy Behar opened her mouth, it was clear this was no ordinary press stop. Well, she began, her trademark smirk loaded with something sharper than sarcasm. Look who we have here. Harrison Ford, the man who made a fortune playing the same grumpy guy in different costumes. A murmur rippled through the audience. The other hosts shifted awkwardly in their seats. This wasn't what they had rehearsed. Offstage, Ford's publicist felt her stomach drop. She had explicitly asked producers to keep things light and respectful. But Joy had other plans. Ford's jaw tensed, just slightly. But his voice, as always, was measured and calm. I think you might be confusing me with someone else, Joy. I've played a wide range of characters over the years. Joy leaned forward, grinning. Oh, really? Let's see. Grumpy pilot in Star Wars, grumpy archaeologist in Indiana Jones, grumpy detective in Blade Runner. Sounds like a pattern to me. The audience went quiet. This wasn't banter. It was a knife wrapped in a joke. Ford glanced at the other hosts, silently pleading for someone to pivot the conversation. No one moved. I came here to talk about my new film, he said, voice firm now. Maybe we could focus on that. Instead of whatever personal vendetta you've got going today, Joy didn't flinch. If anything, she seemed to thrive off the tension. Vendetta, please. I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking. You've been phoning it in for decades. Harrison, when was the last time you actually challenged yourself as an actor? That one hit different. Ford had endured difficult interviews. He had survived press tours, critics, even late-night potshots. But this felt like an ambush designed to humiliate. You know what, Joy, he said, his legendary calm beginning to crack. I've been in this business over 50 years. Worked with the greatest directors alive. Played everything from presidents to carpenters. And never once did I feel the need to justify my work to someone who makes a living tearing people down on daytime TV. The studio went dead silent. Joy's face flushed red, but instead of pulling back, she doubled down, tearing people down. I'm holding you accountable. These are real questions your fans deserve answers to. Or are you just too much of a prima donna to take honest criticism? Ford stood, slowly. The sound of his chair scraping across the floor echoed like thunder. You call this honest criticism? I've dealt with critics who knew what they were talking about. You're not even in their league. Sit down, Harrison, Joy snapped, voice rising. You don't get to intimidate me just because you're some big-shot movie star. This is my show. I'll ask whatever the hell I want. Ford's voice dropped, calm but lethal. Your show is a joke. Joy, you tear down artists while contributing nothing but noise, at least when I play a grumpy character I'm acting. Chaos erupted. The other hosts scrambled to regain control, tossing out nervous laughter and hasty transitions, but it was far too late. Joy wasn't finished. You think you're better than everyone else, don't you? She hissed. You think a few blockbuster movies give you the right to look down on us. Well, let me tell you something. Mr. Ford, your best days are behind you, and everyone knows it. A hush fell over the room. Ford didn't respond right away. His hands were clenched at his sides. His eyes burned with fury, but something else. Disappointment, disgust, pain. The tension in the room was so thick it felt like gravity itself had shifted. Producers were frozen. The audience was stunned. And somewhere, deep down, everyone watching knew they had just witnessed television history right before their eyes. The line between awkward interview and televised disaster vanished. This wasn't just friction, it was combustion. And millions were watching it live. Harrison Ford slowly turned his head toward Joy Behar, his eyes narrowing with that signature stare, the one that once faced down Nazis, gangsters, and galactic warlords. But this wasn't a movie. This was real, and the fire behind those eyes, that was no act. "My best days are behind me," Ford repeated, voice barely above a whisper, yet sharper than a blade. "You want to talk about best days, Joy? Let's talk about yours. When exactly were those? Back when you were bombing on stage doing stand-up, no one laughed at. Or maybe when you started clinging to relevance by tearing down people who actually built something." Joy's mouth fell open. This wasn't the reaction she expected. She thought he'd either laugh it off or walk out. She didn't expect him to strike back with surgical precision. "How dare you?" she stammered, her usual bravado cracking. "You don't know the first thing about me or my career?" "I know enough," Ford shot back, still standing tall over the panel like a judge issuing a sentence. "I know you built whatever career you have by ridiculing others. I know you hide behind this panel of women like it's a shield saying the cruelest things you can and calling it honesty. And I know deep down, happy people don't spend their lives trying to make others feel small." The other hosts were frozen, practically cowering. Whoopi tried to toss in a joke to break the tension, but the moment her mouth opened, both Ford and Joy turned on her with synchronized glares that said, "Don't you dare. You think you can psychoanalyze me now?" Joy snapped, her voice trembling whether from rage or something deeper was anyone's guess. "You, arrogant has-been." Ford actually laughed. "But there was no humor in it, has-been," he echoed. "Joy, I made more money last year than you'll see in your entire life. My movies are still playing in theaters across the globe while you're here gossiping about people to fill the empty hours of housewives' mornings. If I'm a has-been, what does that make you?" A never was a gasp rippled through the studio audience. Hands flew to mouths, eyes widened. This was no longer an interview, it was character assassination. On live television, Joy's face turned a dangerous shade of crimson. "You think money makes you something special?" she shot back. "You think landing a few lucky roles makes you some kind of god?" Ford's voice finally rose and the studio flinched. "Lucky? I spent years hauling lumber and doing bit parts in garbage films before I got my shot. Every role I earned, I fought for, I bled for." "You want to talk about luck? How about the luck of landing a national TV gig, with no real talent, just a knack for cruelty and a loud mouth?" In the control booth, producers were frantically waving for a commercial break, but it was too late. Joy was beyond reason now. She had started this war, and she was going to finish it, even if it burned the whole studio down. "At least I don't phone in my work," she snapped. "At least when I show up, I try to do something worth watching instead of just mumbling through the same tired routine." Ford stepped forward, his face flushed, his fists clenched. For a second, it looked like he might reach across the table and shake her by the shoulders. "Phone it in," he growled. "You want to talk about phoning it in? Look around this sad little studio. Joy, you sit here day after day gossiping about people whose lives actually matter because yours clearly doesn't. You call this trying. You call this interesting. This show is the biggest waste of airtime on television, and you're the reason why." Joy shot up from her chair. Matching Ford eye to eye like two gunfighters in a saloon, standoff, the silence between them crackled with tension. You could feel it, smell it, cut it with a knife. "Get out," Joy hissed, her voice low and deadly. "Get out of my studio, right now. We don't need you. We don't need your attitude, and we definitely don't need your washed-up movie star ego." Ford didn't blink. "Your studio," he said, voice ice cold. "Funny, I thought it belonged to the audience. Too bad they're stuck watching you." Ford let out another laugh try, cold and stripped of any humor. "This isn't your studio, Joy," he said, voice low but cutting. "This is a soundstage, a rented space where they shoot your daily gossip segment. You don't own anything here except maybe that chair you've been warming for the past ... what? 2 decades? Contributing nothing to the world except cheap shots and making people feel smaller than they are." The camera operators instinctively zoomed in. They knew what they were capturing wasn't just a tense moment. It was daytime TV history in the making. This wasn't an interview gone wrong. This was war, and both sides were now fully armed. Joy's voice sharpened as her pitch climbed. You know what your problem is, Harrison? You can't handle the fact that someone finally had the guts to tell you the truth about your mediocre career. She leaned forward, like she was throwing the words like daggers. You're not the hero you play in the movies. You're just another aging actor clinging to relevance, pretending people still care. But they don't. No one does. But the words hit Ford like blunt force trauma. For the first time, his expression faltered. The color drained from his face. There, in front of millions. A flash of real hurt broke through, the kind that only comes from a truth you feared someone might say aloud. But just as quickly, the pain hardened into something far more dangerous. A slow, cold fury filled his eyes, and the room seemed to go still. The silence that followed felt like a vacuum. Even the air seemed to stop moving. And then, with a voice so quiet, it forced the entire studio to lean in. Harrison Ford finally spoke. You want to know what nobody cares about anymore? Joy. He stepped forward, each word heavier than the last. Nobody cares about bitter, talentless hacks who've made a career of tearing others down. Nobody cares about washed-up comedians who haven't told a funny joke since the 90s. And absolutely nobody cares about your opinion of me or anyone else who actually creates something. Joy opened her mouth, ready to retaliate, but Ford raised a single hand, and for the first time all morning, she fell silent. I'm not finished. His voice grew stronger, steadier. You asked me when I last challenged myself as an actor. Let me ask you something in return. When was the last time you used this platform to build someone up instead of tearing them down? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and asked if you were making the world better? Or just adding to the noise, the venom, the ugliness? The other hosts sat frozen, stunned. No one dared interrupt. The cameras kept rolling, catching every word, every breath, every tremor in Joy's trembling hands. She snapped back, her voice now shaking more than shouting. You sanctimonious hypocrite. You think you're better than everyone else because you starred in a few movies? You think that makes you some kind of moral authority? Ford's eyebrows lifted not in anger, but in genuine disbelief. Moral? Authority? He echoed. Joy, I'm not claiming to be a saint. I'm just an actor. I show up, do my job, and try to treat people with basic respect. But apparently, that's asking too much in your world. Respect has to be earned, she shot back, now nearly yelling. And all you've earned is a reputation for being difficult and demanding on every set you've ever worked on. Ford chuckled, but this laugh was different, warmer, more grounded, a man finally realizing the futility of arguing with someone who couldn't see past their own bitterness. You know what? You're right, he said, nodding slowly. I am difficult. I'm difficult when directors ask me to phone. In a performance, I'm demanding when producers want to cut corners that will cheapen the story. I'm difficult because I care, because I respect the audience enough to give them my absolute best every single time. He turned then, for the first time, and looked directly into the camera. And I'm difficult when people like you try to tear down everything others have spent their lives building. So yes, I'm being difficult right now, and I'll keep being difficult until people like you remember what basic human decency looks like. Joy was practically vibrating with rage now. Human decency. You're going to lecture me on decency, she snarled. You're the one who just spent the last 10 minutes trashing me on live TV. Ford didn't flinch. No, Joy, he said, voice back to calm steel. I didn't trash you. I answered your questions honestly. I just held up a mirror, and you didn't like what you saw. Ford didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words cut cleaner at a whisper. I'm responding to your attacks. Joy, there's a difference. You started this trying to humiliate me for sport. Everything I've said, it's a reaction to your cruelty, not an act of ego. But let me tell you what really gets under my skin about people like you. He took a slow step forward, closing the distance between them. The audience leaned in. Every camera followed. And then his voice dropped to a level just above silence. Yet somehow, it echoed louder than any shout. You hide behind words, like honesty, tough questions. But that's not what this is. This is cruelty, masquerading as journalism. This is you hurting someone live on national television because it makes you feel powerful, because it makes you feel seen. Joy blinked, caught off guard. Her face twitched. Just for a second, something cracked. Something real. And the saddest part, Ford continued. You probably don't even realize how damaged a person has to be to take pleasure in making others feel small. Her expression faltered. A flicker of a moment, the armor slipped. But then it snapped back. How dare you try to psychoanalyze me? Joy exploded. You arrogant, self-righteous fool. You don't know anything about me. You think you can walk in here and tear me apart based on one conversation. Ford laughed softly, disbelieving one conversation. Joy, this isn't an isolated moment. This is a pattern. This is who you are. Every day you sit in that chair and look for weakness. You mock people. You provoke them. You dig at their soft spots. And when they finally snap, you play the victim, but not today. Backstage, producers were in freefall. Some shouting to cut the feed, others frozen with uncertainty. On set, you could hear every breath, every heartbeat. You want to know what I really think, Ford said, eyes locked on her now. I think you're bitter. I think you're jealous of people who built something meaningful. While you've made a career out of criticizing those who actually create. Joy was shaking. Jealous, she hissed. Jealous of what? Your dying career, your string of flops, your desperate attempt to cling to relevance while the industry moves on without you. Ford didn't flinch. No, you're jealous that people remember my work with love. You're jealous that when audiences think of me, they think of characters that brought them wonder, hope, joy. When people think of you, they remember bitterness, contempt, noise. What have you given the world? Joy. What legacy do you leave behind? Joy opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Ford nodded slowly, like that silence confirmed everything. That's what I thought. I came here to talk about a film that means something. To me, a story I'm proud of, something meant to entertain, uplift, maybe even inspire someone who's struggling. That's my job. I bring a little magic into the world. He gestured to the room around him. But you grind that magic into dust. You take the things that lift people up and drag them down into the dirt, all for ratings, for cheap laughs. For the thrill of making someone squirm, Joy finally found her voice again, ragged, faint. You can't talk to me like this, she said. You don't come on my show and tear me down. Ford's voice rose not in anger, but truth. Your show, he said, now with fire behind every word. This isn't a show, Joy. This is a public execution, dressed up as daytime entertainment, and I'm not going to sit here and let you parade me in front of your audience just to sharpen your knives. He turned toward the edge of the stage, but halfway there, he stopped. One last glance back. The saddest part is, you probably think you won something today, that this moment makes great TV, but all you've done is show the world exactly who you are. And trust me's not a pretty picture. Joy shot to her feet, pointing at him like an angry judge. Don't you dare walk away from me, she screamed. You don't get to turn your back when I'm talking. Ford didn't turn around. I'm not walking away from you, Joy, he said calmly. I'm walking away from this toxic circus you call a show, from the cruelty, the cheap shots, the ugliness you spread every single day. He paused. The studio was still as death. And I'm walking away from the lie that this is entertainment. Because if this is what people are tuning in for, then we're all in trouble. Joy hurled one final insult after him. You think you're better than us, better than me? Ford finally turned back slowly. No, he said. I just think you've forgotten who you were supposed to be, and for that, I don't feel angry, I feel sorry for you. And with that, Harrison Ford walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a panel of speechless hosts, and a moment that would echo through daytime television history like a thunderclap. What do you think of this unforgettable showdown? Was Harrison out of line, or did Joy finally meet her match? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping moments you won't see on the front page. This is real drama. This is what happens when the cameras roll and no one's wearing a mask anymore.